Greetings, it's Vaygrim. I am here on a Saturday doing a quick show-off of something called, oh gosh, I'm getting lots of really cool green screen effects there. That is a Game Capture HD60. I'm going to have to turn off green screen. Ooh. That's interesting. Anyway, Game Capture HD60. This thing is an interesting idea, but it's kind of a failed concept. I've already had about a day to plug it in, test it out. You get this nice little sleeve insert that goes into the box, right? And the sleeve insert has, let me get this over here. It basically has, that is the Game Capture itself, along with, in here, you've got a USB 2.0 cable. Why did that fall down? Get a USB 2.0 cable, and then you've got a HDMI cable, right? So I'm going to pull this thing out here real quick and show you. It's quite small. Very small, as a matter of fact. I mean, this is an iPhone 4S, not a Plus or anything like that, but you can see right there, point of size comparison. These things are, my phone's a little bit bigger. This is a little bit thicker. Well, on one end, you've got 3 plugs. This is basically, we're looking at audio, analog audio in. You have HDMI in, and then you have the USB. This is the USB interface that you're plugging into whatever computer that's going to be controlling this. Then you have the outside. Now, this is one problem I have with it already. It only has HDMI out. It doesn't have analog audio out. So I had to let the audio come out through, because I'm recording on one machine. I'm recording one machine from another computer. And I had to let the audio go through my monitor and then tap into it through my monitor. And somewhere between going through this, then going through my monitor and having to plug my speakers into my monitor's headphone jack, because the speakers on the monitor are horrible, I got this really bad buzz. That's problem number one. This thing should have an analog audio right there. It doesn't. That's one big problem I have with it already. Problem number two is the fact that it is actually USB 2.0. This thing generates so much data. If you're going to record in anything higher than 720p, 30 frames per second. So if you're going to do 720p 60 FPS at higher than 50% quality, or if you're going to do 1080p 30 FPS at 50% quality, probably 60 FPS at like 30% quality, then unless you're willing to sacrifice a lot of good looking video or just go down to 720p, then basically you can't record with this, because it's actually creating more data from here than it can actually get out over that USB 2.0 port. The transfer rate is so high that it actually goes over the standard industry limits for USB 2.0, and it clips, and you get pixelations, and you get audio desync. It's really bad. This is a great concept, but it's a poor execution, specifically because they're using USB 2. Even if they did USB 3, you'd probably still start to hit limitations when you did 1080p at 60 frames per second, anything higher than 50% quality. It's just not, head upside down, it's not even, it's just not, it's a great concept. Like I said, it's just poorly executed. This should be an internal card, because PCI Express has a maximum bandwidth cap of like 500 megabytes per second. USB 2.0 has 40. You see why I'm sending this back. Now, problem number two I have is that the software that comes with it, or actually it doesn't come with it, you have to go download it. Sorry. But the software that you go download and use with that is, it looks great, but the performance on it is horrible. It is software they've been developing for the last several years, but it has a recommendation. This is my problem, not theirs, but it's got hardware specs that aren't listed on the Amazon page. I got this on Amazon, and it's got hardware specs that aren't listed on the Amazon page. This thing requires a second generation Core i5 CPU, bare minimum. It recommends a second generation i7. I don't have that in my capture machine. I'm the generation behind that, on the other side of that. So this thing wants stuff that came out like beginning of last year or maybe the year before. And I've got a CPU that's like 4 or 5 years old. So this isn't an option for me. It's not going to work. The various problems I'm running across are manifest. One, it requires so much CPU horsepower because the software is horribly optimized. If you actually use the software for it, basically, I wonder if I still have it installed on this machine. I do. Don't know if it's going to run, though, because I don't have it plugged in. Okay. Yeah, so here we go. Let me see if I can actually... I'm going to switch over to that software. Okay, so here we are with the actual game capture software. What you can actually see is my mouse. You've got this, which is normally a preview window. Okay, the preview window requires, there's a little toggle down here for it when you have the hardware plugged in. And the preview window basically... Capture, here we go. This is in capture mode. And there's a toggle button right here that lets you toggle the preview window on and off. And there's a toggle for hearing the audio from the actual device, toggling on and off. And I had to keep it off because I would get into a sound loop, basically the way I have my system set up. But you have the device would normally be listed here, and you could change what settings it was using: 720p, 1080p, 30 FPS, 60 FPS, etc. You have the game audio, live streaming control command. You actually have live commentary. This is great. If you had your microphone hooked up into it, it would dynamically lower the game audio to make sure the mic audio is louder. That is something that I'm very, very impressed with. It's a great feature. However, there's still a bit of a flaw in that concept. Basically, the system, the way that they have it set up, you only see this feedback audio, and you only see it correcting if you have the live preview window. And if you have the live preview window running, turning it on, not even capturing, turning it on my i7 CPU, it went from 20% CPU usage, doing nothing. I had Chrome and this software open. It went from 20% CPU usage, 10 to 20%, to 100%. And that was at 1080p, 30 frames per second at less than 50% quality. It was very bad, very, very bad. Even if I dropped down to 720p, I had to drop on this meter, this quality meter, how good of a capture you want, I had to drop it below the 50% mark on 60 FPS at 720p in order to get the render to not peg the CPU. And even if I try to capture doing that, it actually desyncs the audio because the CPU cannot write fast enough because the live preview is eating all of it. So I had to turn the live preview off, which is defeating a big chunk of the actual benefit right there. Now, a lot of you said, hey, why don't you just use it with OBS? The problem is every single time that I use the latest builds of OBS to tap into this, my computer would blue screen. Happened at least 4 times during testing late last night. When I first tried it, it happened once, and I thought, I'll come back to this. I tried it several times later in the evening, and I can't get it to work. It actually will not. It will not tap into the Elgato Game Capture hardware. OBS won't, without blue screening my computer within 3 minutes. It's really bad, and I don't know where the deficiency on that is. I don't know if that's Elgato or OBS. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to assign blame. It is still an inconvenient situation, however, and it's something I don't like. So multiple problems arose during the day, the one day that I've been messing with this. Problem number 1 is the fact that my rendering software, both of the software that I actually use, Magix and Serif Movie Plus, they see hardware that has an H.264 chip on it, right? So you can actually use it for encoding. The problem is because this is USB 2.0, it actually slows down. It makes the rendering process worse if I try to use it. So really, you cannot use this to help you render. Whereas if I had something, say, an AberMedia, Game Capture, or whatever it is, that's a PCI Express card. That thing can transfer data so quickly that the CPU can offload a lot of the rendering process and speed things up, because it's an internal card, not USB 2.0. And that's the internal flaw that I keep running across, the internal design flaw. These used to be made as an internal card. I found a video on Jesse Cox on his YouTube channel. He's a big name YouTuber. He's got a really beast of a machine. He calls it Bethany or Batilda. I can't remember what. Anyway, he has one of these, but it's an internal PCI Express card. And that was from middle of last year. You can't find those to order them anymore. Elgato doesn't have them on their website. They don't exist on Amazon. I couldn't find them on Newegg. So I'm assuming they stopped getting made. I think he had one from earlier, an older version, basically. But he has an internal Elgato PCI Express card. Don't know. I love the concept behind the Elgato card. It's just, it's not practical. It really isn't. It is $160, actually $170. It's $169.99 on Amazon. If you're going to get this thing, I really do recommend you think twice. Boop, there we go. If you're going to get this, I really do recommend you think twice. This is going back to Amazon. I've already got a return ticket in. They're going to do a UPS pickup for it, probably Monday or Tuesday. It'll probably be Tuesday. It'll get shipped back, and probably in about a week, I'll get my money back. I'm in a situation right now where I can afford to have that $170 out, but not all of you can. This is a flawed concept. I really do encourage you guys to reconsider if you're going to get... I really wish it didn't green screen so badly. Tell you what I'm going to do. Hang on a sec. I'm going to do properties. Let's see if I can... There we go. Wow, that really breaks the illusion, doesn't it? So, if you're going to get an Elgato Game Capture, I really do recommend you think twice about this. If you're trying to get 1080p out of it, you're probably not going to. Unless, even if you've got a butch i7 machine and USB 3.0 ports, this is still only USB 2. And it is hitting its inherent limitations every time I try to use it at 1080p at anything above 40% quality mark. And I think that's sad. I think it's really pathetic. It's a bad design on a product. It probably serves the consoles very, very well, but this was a concept. This concept came to fruition when Xbox 360 was still ruling the roost, and PlayStation 3 was still ruling the roost, and those consoles used 720p predominantly, not 1080. Now, both next-generation consoles don't even use 1080p. They can have that as an actual hardware limitation, but most of them are actually doing 720p or 900p. So, yeah, 1600 by 900, basically, resolution. Most games on both the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One do not hit 1080p. And even if they do, they're probably only going to do 30 FPS. So 1080p 60 FPS is a uniquely YouTuber problem. It's a uniquely PC gaming master race kind of a problem. And I'm just going to have to readdress it. I think I'm going to have to settle for 1080p video at 30 FPS, and I think I'm going to have to come back in a year or two to 60 FPS. I don't know. I'm not sure. But for right now, this is going back to the store. I'm looking at an AberMedia. Windows. You've got the Windows. AberMedia Game Record. It's a Live Gamer HD is what it's called. Wrong window. There we go. Yeah. I'm looking at that because it's an internal PCI Express card. It actually has legit... Woo, there we go. My Roman baths are back. It has legit, like, functionality in terms of the fact that it's PCI Express. It's going to be right on the motherboard. It's going to have 5 times the bandwidth cap that this Game Capture this Elgato ever could. If you're using an Elgato for console, more power to you. Don't get it for PC gaming. I really do recommend against it. Everybody said that it desyncs audio, and it does desync audio, but I think they're getting it wrong. It's not that it's desyncing audio, it's that the PC they're recording it on desyncs audio because the CPU load is so intensive because everybody has the live preview window turned on. I turned it off, and automatically my CPU load on the software went from 100% to 15%. That's bad. That is really bad. That's really inefficient. They're showing raw, decoded footage straight from the HDMI stream, and I could barely get it dumbed down enough to not lag my machine to hell, either machine. And it's really bad. So you're definitely not doing this for same system capturing. It's not going to happen. Even if you have the software with the live window turned off, it's just not going to happen. Even if you do second system capturing, maybe, but I don't know. So yeah, I'm hoping you guys are going to find this useful. I really do. This is going to be not necessarily an unboxing, but it's going to be basically just a review of the Elgato HD60. It's going back to the store. I'm not impressed with it. I'm going to move on to something else. I'm taking suggestions. If you guys want to give me a suggestion for an internal PCI card that has non-crap software, or at least something I could use with OBS. That's important. If I can use it with OBS, then I'll be happy. But if I can't use it with OBS, this thing blue screened my machines every single time I tried to use it with OBS for more than a minute. That's bad. So I'm hoping you guys are finding this information useful. I'm going to go ahead and call this quits for today. I will talk to you folks later. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.